What is happening, everybody? Nicolas Maduro was captured by the United States Special Forces 160th Special Aviation Regiment, which was the Night Stalkers and the Delta Force. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is big developments. These are big wins geopolitically for the United States. This puts us in a position of holding essentially the natural resources of Venezuela, which is, of course, their oil and gold. That's what this is all about, oil and gold. Also, the election results. That's a big thing that nobody wants to talk about. The mainstream media is not talking about it. And at the end of the day, it's pretty much silence. Nobody's talking about the stolen election in 2020. And years ago, I was banned on YouTube and all of these different social media platforms because I was talking about it. I was following Donald Trump as all of the election was happening. So that is going to essentially be a lot of what is going to be coming out. A lot of the conversation is going to be dominated towards the election fraud that occurred in 2020 and really that entire stolen election. And so today, as Maduro has been captured with his wife in the dead of night, by the way, it was January 3rd, and honestly, I was sleeping. I was just about to go to bed, and right before I fell asleep, or it was like right when I woke up, yeah, this entire operation had happened, and Maduro was extracted, snatched and grabbed from his home. It was a successful operation. Now, what does this achieve, though? Because the opinions are mixed. A lot of people are saying that the operation on Venezuela is uncalled for, it's unnecessary, it does not help American interests. I say perhaps maybe it does. And the reason it does is because we secure a few things. A few things have been achieved with this entire operation. And one of those things that are being achieved is as we mentioned before, the natural resources, the oil, the gold, which Venezuela is the largest reserve of oil. So that's going to be extremely beneficial for the United States in terms of trade and economics there. Also, it's important to maintain the Monroe Doctrine. There's all of that rhetoric. But what that really means is making sure that we can have some kind of global dominance, and especially in the Western Hemisphere, our back door. And so, what's so important to understand about this issue is that, unlike Iran, which perhaps Iran is more of an unnecessary war, right? They have the Houthis, they have Hezbollah, they have Hamas, but that's more of a problem for Israel. And we've been kind of entangled and drawn into that war to fight that for Israel. And so now people are waking up to that. It looks like we might be going into war with Iran as well. And now we have this quagmire with Venezuela. But, however, if we are able to properly maintain control over the region, which Israel is also trying to occupy, as their candidate Machada is trying to get in there right now. Listen, what you're seeing happen with all of this is a regime change. You're seeing the impact of the maps changing. And this is globalism, because what you're going to see is Donald Trump eventually is now, he's already said that the United States is running Venezuela. Okay. So Trump had already said that the United States is running Venezuela, and he said Cuba might be next. He ended up saying that Colombia could be next, and then Greenland. We need Greenland for national security. So a lot of this conversation has been stirring on X and different social media platforms as well. The reason is because this is rather important. And so we're going to go through and we're going to just look through the Twitter algorithm and some of the things I found most important. So at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you are ready for a big future, because we got some crazy things coming ahead of us. So let's take a look at the Twitter algorithm and what we really have here today. And thank you for any followers that I've gained. That's cool. But at the end of the day, I wanted to cover all of the new news today. Again, January 5th, Tim Walz has also been exposed. Okay. Tim Walz has also been exposed for the $250 million Feeding Our Future theft, which spiraled $9 billion in Medicaid/child care scams. Some funds allegedly remitted to Somalia/Al-Shabaab, turning refugee compassion into national security threat and taxpayer betrayal. I said, follow the money. Probe these officials, enablers with documented ties, donations, ignored red flags, or oversight failures. Sorry. Keith Ellison, Attorney General. He met fraud linked to figures, accepted donations, and he was slow on probes. Elon Omar, of course, we all know her. District Epicenter, photos with suspects, and she has questioned the lax oversight, or it's questioned lax oversight. Omar Fateh, however you pronounce that, pressured agencies, and then she also celebrated fraud connected individuals. These are people that we need to look into. Again, I made a whole bullet point list of these people. Jamal Osman, wife's site took $460,000 nonprofit ties to thieves. Jacob Frey, cash from scammers post meetings. Jody Harpstead, ex-DHS commissioner, oversaw programs amid fraud explosion, downplayed the scale, and eventually resigned amid scrutiny. But that doesn't mean that she shouldn't be held accountable for all of these things if she had anything to do with it. I'm not saying that these people have anything to do with it. I'm saying that the X algorithm should look into these individuals. Heather Muller, who is the ex MDE commissioner, she faced pressure to resume suspect payouts and then she stepped down. Tiki Brown, the DCYF commissioner, she also minimized fraud concerns during investigations. Tim O'Malley, new integrity director, audits pre/post role connection. So he obviously would have a lot of information. Ladies and gentlemen, this is important. We need to expose these people. Tim Walz has been exposed. Tim Walz is resigning, and Tim Walz is finally being held accountable. But this is only the beginning, and this is only the beginning of what needs to be done if we really want to have any kind of justice. Let's watch this video real quick.
St. Paul, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Tim Walz will not seek re-election as governor, and what a fall from grace this has been for him. You might recall in the spring of 2023, he pushed through several progressive ideas to the state legislature that caught the attention of Barack Obama, who went to Twitter to give his endorsement for the programs, which eventually caught the attention of people like Kamala Harris, who chose him to be her running mate as the vice president. Introduced in Chicago at the convention in August of last year, a debate that was an absolute disaster with J.D. Vance at one point called himself a knucklehead. But after reportedly billions of dollars have been stolen from taxpayers, by way of the state of Minnesota, Tim Walz says he will not seek a third term. What a remarkable 2 years in the national spotlight has been for him, Dan.
See you later.
And Walz hit Trump in his.
See you later. That's what I say to those politicians. But I do think people should investigate that. But yes, this was a major operation that happened on the Maduro raid. And so, again, we just talked about this and the significance of this, but it is big. So I posted De Oppresso Libre, U.S. Delta Force raid capture of Maduro, January 3rd, 2026, footage released of 160th Special Aviation Regiment snatch and grab. In the Midnight Blitz, echoing Abbottabad, MH-47G Chinooks inserted operators into Caracas, Venezuela, snatching the ousted Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro amid suppressing fire. No U.S. losses, over 150 aircraft involved. Extradited to NYC on 2020 narco-terrorism charges. Maduro faces life for flooding U.S. streets with coke. Updates. Interim governor opposition figure Juan Guaido sworn in, vowing elections, and then the protests also are subsiding as oil flows resume. Russia expels the U.S. diplomats in retaliation, and China halts Venezuelan debt talks. Shifting alliances, Bolivarian bloc features. Yes, they have the Cuba isolated Nicaragua waivers emerging. U.S. brokers Venezuela, Colombia pact for broader security. Brazil joins anti-drug coalition. Iran, Maduro's key backer, loses Latin foothold, straining Hezbollah logistics. Israel angle, the Caracas anti-Zionist stance aided Tehran's proxy networks. Raid disrupts Iran, Venezuela, arms oil access. Bolstering Israeli security via weakened foes. So the American first ramifications are that this is a unilateral strike and it exemplifies prioritizing U.S. interests, curbing narco threats, security, energy independence, sans endless warriors. No UN nod needed, echoes Trump era replitic. What did I write there? Repolitic, I don't even know, over multiple entanglements. Intellectually, how does this reshape the Monroe Doctrine 2.0? Drop your analysis. Does it stabilize or inflame Latam? So I thought this is just crazy. This was footage. This was footage from the actual raid, which occurred allegedly. I thought this was pretty cool. What's funny is I wanted to be a Navy SEAL before I became a police officer. It's crazy to think about. So badass. It's pretty dope. Hear those machine guns? That's awesome. Okay. And here's the dudes who did it. That's what I thought was great, was that everybody wants to be all, everybody wants to pretend like the white people are so bad, but it's like, who did the op? I love how somebody blocked out the Dod's face. It's pretty awesome. But this was a successful op. At the end of the day, whether or not this benefits Israel long term or America, we do have to be happy with the result. Okay, and at the end of the day, we also have Israel basically threatening to take away our freedom of speech. Netanyahu has also been making statements on this, and it's just ridiculous. He's saying that the United States must take action against anti-Semitism. I am expecting the entire world to take action at my command to anti-Semitism. It's like, dude, you don't tell us what to do. You're not even an American, and you're hardly an Israeli. You're like Polish, brother. So, like, stop. But I did want to play this video because it is revealing that Israelis are trying to take away our freedom of speech. Not Jews, all Jews, but the Zionists, but the Israelis, Israeli intelligence, to be clear. So, this isn't against all Jews when we're talking about these things. This is just to state the facts. And this is a problem. We got to protect our First Amendment.
And obviously, currently in America, the greatest threat is Tucker Carlson, who is most likely paid by Qatar for promoting all of the sudden. He became a fan of Sharia law. He became a fan of Hamas, saying that they're just a political movement, and he's against, all these against Islamophobia, and is becoming an advocate of radical Islam.
Yeah, always trying to take away our First Amendment, always trying to say we can't say what we want to say. But guess what? That's the First Amendment. Okay, we have the right in America to say what we want to say. We have the right to have an opinion on what we want to have an opinion about. So ultimately, these people can fuck off. And that's what we need to be comfortable with telling them. It's also important to note that Elon Musk and Donald Trump have reunited, apparently, so to speak. I mean, who knows if that entire fallout was even real? I think it was kind of scripted, but who knows? Again, it could have all, because right after Elon Musk had the black eye and he was thrown out of the Trump administration, D.O.G.E pretty much ended at that point. Essentially, right after that is when Elon made the statement that, oh, Trump is in the Epstein files, and that's why he's not going to do anything, and that's why nothing's going to happen. And so now we have this development where Elon and Trump are working together again. So I think this is the most positive outcome. And what's funny is I actually made a post about Elon and Trump teaming up years and years and years ago. And then that actually happened. And somebody had brought that tweet back up from like 2015, where I said Elon and Donald Trump need to get together. They need to like change the world together. They'd be like the ultimate duo. Trump, the magic man, the deal maker, and Elon Musk, the freaking businessman, the tycoon, the AI god. That's kind of what I'm saying. And that's the future we need. That's the lit future of America that we could have. Yeah, this is the statement from Netanyahu, more emphasizing how this is more of a win for Venezuela.
America, every part of the Middle East, but to Venezuela, they're in cahoots with the Maduro regime. They're exporting terrorism to America, to the American hemisphere, and then they want these Hezbollah and Hamas to get their guys into the United States. So Hamas and Iran's and its proxies are a threat not only to us, but to Israel, all America's allies in the Middle East, and to America itself.
Oops.
There's still some work to be done with the proxies, and we're doing it.
Well, you mentioned Venezuela. Venezuela's had Senator Marco Rubio has been speaking about this, or Secretary Marco Rubio has been speaking about this a long time. Hezbollah does have its foothold in Venezuela, has for a long time. There's the drug trade. They may use guns against Israelis, but they use drugs against the United States.
Exactly. Well, I wouldn't eliminate the possibility of arms shipments from
that may be next
from Iran to Venezuela. So this is going to change. I think President Trump is showing remarkable leadership facing up to that threat here, supporting your fighting ally, Israel, to fight not only for our interests, but also for American interests against these radical Muslims.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen.
Basically chant death to America, and they mean it. And so we have to make sure they don't have the means to do it or the will to do it.
So it sounds like what he's saying sounds good if you don't have any kind of knowledge of what's going on in the world. If you don't know what's happening geopolitically, you would think what he's saying sounds logical and reasonable and that these terrorists need to go. And obviously, but the real problem is that we have an issue with a foreign entanglement with the state of Israel, with intelligence agencies in Israel, literally putting devices in our offices. Okay, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's military, whether it's politicians, we're all being targeted. And I noticed as a cop, honestly, the amount of scams and the amount of scam callers we'd get, the amount of Bitcoin scams we'd get, the nerve, the nerve. It is a mainstream, widestream operation to, again, essentially, if you read the book Spy Fail, it talks a lot about this. And it talks a lot about how the United States essentially lost its edge on counter surveillance and counterintelligence, all these things, cybersecurity. So you should read the book Spy Fail because it goes more in depth on how the United States government kind of basically got overtaken years ago in the war on cybersecurity and all these things by China, by Israel, especially those two countries primarily. And then, of course, there was Korea. So we had multiple nations for many years who have been hacking all of our stuff and essentially really just, wiping us out in the intel world, in the military world, law enforcement, and then on all fronts, really. And we're getting hit everywhere psychologically now through Twitter X. And so now the war is for information and for the narrative. So that's the World War III gestalt of where we're at. And of course, you guys are probably looking at this, which actually ended up getting 600 impressions. I'm a smaller X account. Follow me on X. But yeah, so there was some big developments that have been happening these past few days. And just going into 2025, we have certainly seen more than our fair share of entertainment, more than our fair share of some pretty wild developments. Here's Trump essentially saying that we are going to control Venezuela.
As everyone knows, the oil business in Venezuela has been a bust, a total bust for a long period of time. They were pumping almost nothing by comparison to what they could have been pumping and what could have taken place. We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world, go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, the oil infrastructure, and start making money for the country. As everyone knows.
And again, so currently President Rodriguez is taking the stand as president, but I don't know how much longer that's going to last because I think, again, there's a regime change happening and they want Machado in there. They want to have their person in there. And at the end of the day, this is a narrative of who's going to control Venezuela, who's going to control that government now, because it's basically a failed state. And with a failed state, now you have to install a new leader and essentially you control it. So again, that's why Trump has been saying we now control Venezuela temporarily. So that's until we find a leader of which we decide will run it in our favor. So again, Elon Musk, that's right. God bless the United States military. Thank you, United States military. As a law enforcement officer, I thank you. I am grateful for you. Appreciate your service and sacrifices to those who ever served DMFU. And there was just footage from somebody. Jeez. Sorry. So loud. Why does everything got to be so loud? And it's just crazy. Then these were just some of these are the blasts that happened to the narco boats, also near the event. This was all for diversion, and this was all essentially to create a form of chaos in a way, and that's really what the objective of this all was. Order out of chaos. And then this was them rolling in. Yeah. And so all of these bombs you're seeing, this was all a diversion, essentially. And so they had F-16s or something like that, F-14s, I can't. Anyways, they were flying through the sky, and they were essentially creating an entire diversion so that the Delta Force guys could go in, and they could make the op, and they could make the snatch and grab. So it was successful. So, ladies and gentlemen, what do you guys think? I mean, I think based on the algorithm today, it's pretty crazy, you know, and as we update and we look about what's happening now, we have lots of new information as we speak. So we have lots of new information on Nick Fuentes. We got information on Representative Ttim Burchett. This is just now.
Facing future justice. You know, it's kind of ironic how Joe Biden in March of 25, him and Kamala Harris put a $50 million bounty out on his head. And then in January,
we'll retweet this.
January of 25, he put $25 million on his way out. Trump pops one on him in August 25th, August of this past year, $50 million. And then he goes and takes him down. And the left is all clenching at their pearls and hollering how awful it is, can't believe. And Biden put the bounty out on him first. Although he didn't do anything, didn't have the guts to do it, him or Harris, a couple of paper tigers, but Trump went and took him out. It's just completely disingenuous and ironic. And of course, the lapdogs in the media are just soaking this up and putting it out there about how horrible it was. Well, where the hell were they when Biden put this bounty out on him? What does that mean?
Totally.
2 different times he upped it from 15 to 25 million. It's bogus. Trump did the right thing. This guy's a narco-terrorist, pumping drugs into our communities, killed more people in the Vietnam War. I'm glad they took him out. I'm hopeful and grateful that our government and our justice system will take the full wrath against him if and when he is found guilty.
Yeah. You know, politicians who are corrupt deserve to be punished. Again, that was from Representative Ttim Burchett. And again, that was for the Biden Kamala, who put $15 million bounty on Maduro's head. Then $25 million, Trump take him down and left clutches in their pearls. So I'm going by Eric Daughtry's tweet there. But the algorithm doesn't lie. Yes, there's just nothing but craziness all the time. And there's always new news. There's always new news. So at the end of the day, crypto is going to be a big asset for the future. If you guys are looking to make money, then crypto is going to be one of the last ways that you can truly make wealth, okay? Unless you're an entrepreneur, unless you're a business owner, crypto is going to be the one way that you can make money. Okay, outside of geopolitics and becoming influencers and journalists, unfortunately, we're all going to have to find a way to make money, right? Well, cryptocurrency, digital assets are everything. And whether or not you agree, it is going to be the financial infrastructure of the future through the Genius Act and the Clarity Act, which are soon going to be officially passed in the Senate. A couple of them already have been. And so what this is going to cause is the entire banking system is going to reset. And so when I say reset, it's not necessarily going to just reset overnight, but it's more so going to kind of merge with the dollar. And gold is going to go up to about $10,000 to $15,000. And this was according to Jim Rickards, not me. I just go by the experts. I go by the people who know the system. Jim Rickards, if you don't know, is he worked for the CIA and he worked for Wall Street, and he's kind of worked in multiple different industries. He's worked for the U.S. Treasury. So I like listening to people like that who have a good basis of knowledge, right? So again, let's just take a look at the crypto markets today. Looks like everything's doing pretty good. So the crypto market's doing pretty good today. We have Bitcoin at $94,155.24. We have Ethereum at $3,243, Tether at 99 cents, and we have XRP way back up at $2.31. That which has gone up 1.68% since in 24 hours it's gone up 10%. And then 7 days, it's gone 25% up. So the future is looking very good for XRP, by the way. I'm a big proponent of XRP. I believe that it has a store of value. I believe it has a unit of account. I believe it is excellent technology. It is utilization of the market. It is utilization of the blockchain transactions and payments instantly and with very low costs, very low fees. But what is it, like 1,500 transactions per second, probably more now, with the innovation of Ripple, which is the company Ripple, and then XRP is the currency. And then you also have the consideration that the company Ripple just defeated the SEC in their lawsuit, which this whole SEC lawsuit, if you didn't know, I was an investor in crypto for years, especially XRP, since 2016 through this entire lawsuit. And so everybody thought XRP was going to lose and that the company Ripple was going to lose this lawsuit. And they ended up winning. They ended up winning because they were able to prove that XRP, which is the asset used by the company Ripple, basically they were able to prove that this was a currency and not a security. And so now that is legal precedent. And so Bitcoin actually doesn't have that clarity. Ethereum doesn't even really have that clarity. And in the EU, they're not really allowing people to use Bitcoin. So it's interesting. And then in Japan and El Salvador, Bitcoin's being used in El Salvador, but also people aren't talking about XRP. So it's just something to think about. And then, of course, we have the other great coins that Trump has recommended, like Solana, which is at $138. We have the USDC, which is just stable coin again. And then we have Tron, which is at 29 cents, Dogecoin at 15 cents, Cardano at 41 cents, and then Chainlink, which is another Trump recommended coin earlier back in 2025 at $14.02. And then from the rest of these, we also have Stellar Lumens XLM, another Trump recommended coin from the Trump administration, basically saying that they're going to use these coins as the future of the infrastructure. 24 cents for Stellar Lumens, and then Litecoin, 83 cents, Avalanche, $14, and Hedera Hashgraph at 12 cents. And essentially, these are the biggest players, as I understand. So everything we just went over, those are going to be the big coins that are going to be used in the future. But hey, yeah, invest in digital assets, guys. Don't be like the rest of the masses, okay? Right now, the fear and greed index is at 42, which is neutral. Right now, honestly, I'm like right here. I feel good. Okay, I feel good. I feel like, okay, yeah, people are scared. The market's dying and the dollar's dying. And so the more money that leaves the US dollar, guess where it goes? It goes into assets, whether it's real estate, whether it's gold, whether it's silver or crypto. And so you have to understand that the money's flowing. People don't want to lose. People are smart enough now. They've caught on and they know where to put their money. Okay, so hopefully that this market update, this daily January 5th, 2026 update, hopefully this was valuable for you. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully it was enjoyable to go through the X algorithm and talk about the geopolitical angles of our world today and how all of these things impact the United States, how it puts America on top, or how it puts us at risk. So we need to consider these things. I think we need to investigate all of the fraud, the Minnesota fraud, $250 million. We need to hold other countries accountable. And when I say other countries accountable, I'm talking about Israel and, foreign lobbies in countries like that. That's important. With the United Nations, they're holding a general sessions today, I believe, hosting all of their events. So we'll hear statements from what they have to say about it, about the Maduro raid and essentially the Trump administration's Operation Absolute Resolve. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, that's the news for going into 2026. Tim Walz is likely going to be indicted, and maybe he'll even do jail time. We don't know. So, what do you think? Be sure to like, share, subscribe, retweet this, repost it. It would help me out. This is how I make my money. This is how I earn an income, is by your guys' help and by your support, clicking the like button, all that stuff. So I appreciate it. And I'll be back with another episode next time the news has hit a climactic point where we need to discuss it, because the news moves so fast that you just almost have to wait till you have all the information first. Otherwise, I'm just at risk of being wrong all the time. And so again, information moves fast. Make sure you're getting summaries of things. Make sure you're looking at all the angles. You're studying everything. Okay. Your freedom of speech today is under attack. Make no mistake about it. They want to call you an anti-Semite. They want to call you a racist, whether you're black, white, or whatever. They want to take away your First Amendment. They want to take away your land. They want to take away your First Amendment, your Second Amendment, which is your right to keep and bear arms, which is basically the right to protect yourself against the government or, of course, any kind of evil person. So thank you. And that's my message for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. And stay prudent, stay powerful, and stay wealthy.